At my sister's wedding, I destroyed our entire family. My mother cried. My father shouted. I just smiled. And then the real nightmare began. The moment the announcer called my name at graduation, I swear the air itself hesitated. I caught sight of my parents' faces in the sea of applause, and they weren't smiling. They weren't proud. They looked pale. Like someone had just told them I'd committed a felony instead of graduating summa cum laude. I gripped my diploma a little tighter as I walked across the stage. My sister Hannah's cheers rang out over the crowd, loud and perfect. Our parents stood up for her, clapping, recording, smiling like they'd just witnessed the second coming. For me? They stayed seated. It wasn't new, but it still stung. God, it still stung. You wanna know the crazy part? We're twins. 4 minutes apart. Born from the same blood, the same pain, the same screaming delivery room. But apparently, somewhere in those 4 minutes, my value dropped to 0. Growing up, it was obvious. Hannah got the new dolls, the new dresses, the new bike. I got the neighbor's cast-offs, a frayed stuffed rabbit with one eye missing, a pink dress that smelled like mildew. If Hannah cried over a scraped knee, my mother would sprint like she was saving a life. If I bled, she'd hand me a paper napkin and say, "You're tough, Rachel. Shake it off." I learned something real important, real fast. Pain doesn't buy you love. Not unless you scream loud enough. One summer day when we were 5, Hannah tried to climb this huge, rusted metal dome at the park. She slipped halfway up and started sobbing. I climbed to the top. Jumped. Scraped both knees bloody. Landed so hard I saw stars. I thought, stupidly, that would make them proud. That they'd finally look at me the way they looked at her. Instead, Dad ran to Hannah, swept her into his arms, kissed her on the forehead. Told her she was so brave for trying. Me? He glanced at me and muttered, "Be careful, Rachel. You could hurt yourself." I didn't know it then, but that was the blueprint. The harder I tried to earn their love, the more invisible I became. In 3rd grade, I wrote a short story that won some tiny local contest. My teacher, Mrs. Patel, gave me the shiny certificate and clapped me on the back. At dinner that night, Mom squinted at the paper and said, "That's nice, Rachel. Just don't get cocky. You're not better than anyone." Meanwhile, Hannah handed over a crooked, half-finished paper swan she made in art class, and my parents practically threw a parade. I never hated her for it. Not really. Not then. It wasn't Hannah's fault she was magnetic. She had that easy glow people loved. She could smile and break a room open. Me? I was background noise. Still, a part of me started to harden. Started to think, if they expect me to survive alone, I will. When college rolled around, it should have been a clean slate. Both of us, same major, same school. Same shot at proving ourselves. Except, again, Hannah had a safety net. Her tuition? Paid up front. Her books? Covered. Her dorm? Designer level, fully decked out. My tuition? "You're smart, Rachel," my mom said. "You'll figure something out. Scholarships. Grants. Part-time jobs." I built my future like a maniac stacking matchsticks. One breath wrong and the whole thing could have collapsed. While Hannah partied at Greek life events and went to Coachella weekends, I was scrubbing dorm hallways at 2 a.m., folding my bruised hands into cleaning gloves, telling myself, "Hold on, Rachel. Hold on just a little longer." You'd think all of this would have made me cold. Made me bitter. And yeah, maybe a little. But there was a deeper fight inside me. A worse, scarier one. Because sometimes, late at night, when exhaustion and loneliness knotted my ribs, I didn't just feel sad. I didn't just feel abandoned. I felt this hunger. Not for their approval. Not anymore. No, I wanted them to regret it. I wanted them to choke on it. I wanted them to look at me one day and realize they'd thrown away the only person in the family who had the guts to survive without them. It scared me. That dark little voice inside. The one whispering, maybe you don't want their love anymore. Maybe you want revenge. I buried it deep. Smiled. Studied. Cleaned toilets. Worked internships. Told myself I was better than that. But standing there on the graduation stage, diploma clutched in my hand, parents looking like they'd swallowed nails. I wasn't sure anymore. Maybe that dark part of me was the only real part left. And that was when I decided something. If love was conditional, fine. If attention was earned through suffering, fine. But from now on, I wouldn't beg for it. I'd make them regret losing me. No matter what it took. Even if I had to burn everything down to the ground. The first time it happened, I didn't even recognize myself. It was 2 weeks after graduation. Hannah had posted a picture online, her standing on a brand new yacht, wearing a designer dress, sipping champagne. #blessed. #my parents are the best. #graduation gift. I stared at my cracked phone screen in my tiny studio apartment, my half-eaten ramen turning to paste in my mouth. There were no hashtags for me. No yacht. No champagne. Just the smell of mildew from the leaky window and the fluorescent flicker of the street lamp outside. I should have looked away. I didn't. Instead, I did something petty. Something small. Something that felt good. I logged into an old email account I hadn't touched in years. One I'd used for a prank club back in high school. Created a fake profile. Sent Hannah a bogus "congratulations. You've been selected for an exclusive modeling gig" email. Attached a hilarious, fake contract asking for ridiculous things. Please send headshots of you holding a pineapple. Must wear Crocs. I thought it would end there. A stupid prank. A harmless joke. But Hannah took it seriously. Posted about it. Bragged about her big break. And when the truth hit, when she realized she'd been played, she crumbled. I didn't laugh. I didn't even smile. I just sat there, watching it all unfold, feeling nothing. Not pride. Not guilt. Just a hollow, weightless ache. It scared me a little. Because if something so stupid could hurt her so much, what else could I do? I buried the feeling under work. Landed an entry-level accounting job at a boutique firm downtown, the kind of place where the coffee machine cost more than my car. On the surface, things were fine. Better, even. I wore second-hand suits that almost fit. I smiled at clients. I made polite conversation in the break room. No one could tell that underneath, I was rotting. Turning into something brittle and sharp-edged. The loneliness was the worst part. Not the kind you feel when you're physically alone. I'd gotten used to that. The loneliness of knowing no one, gave a damn if you lived or died. Hannah had her yacht selfies. My parents had their Facebook perfect family narrative. I had spreadsheets. And a single thought that buzzed under my skin like a wasp trapped in a jar. Make them see you. Make them wish they'd treated you differently. One night, about 2 months after graduation, everything changed. It was late. I was the last one in the office again, hunched over tax forms, trying to finish a rush job for one of the senior partners. The cleaning crew had already passed through. The lights outside the window flickered in the thick summer heat. I was about to shut down my computer when I noticed something strange. A file. One that wasn't supposed to be there. It was labeled, Clients High Risk List. Out of pure reflex, boredom, curiosity, something more dangerous, I opened it. Names. Numbers. Records. Illegal ones. Shell companies. Tax evasion. False bookkeeping. The firm's dirty secrets. I sat there frozen, my heart pounding in my ears. I should have closed it. Should have pretended I never saw it. Instead, I copied it to a flash drive. Slid it into my purse like it was nothing more than a packet of gum. Walked out into the hot night air, the buzzing streetlights casting long shadows across the cracked sidewalks. Later, lying awake in my shoebox apartment, I stared at the ceiling and realized. This was it. This was power. Real power. Not the kind you earn by smiling politely or working late. The kind you take. The next morning, I sent an anonymous email. Simple. Clean. I have information regarding your accounting practices. If you want to keep it buried, we'll talk terms. No threats. No demands. Just a match, dangling over a river of gasoline. I thought I'd feel guilty. Or scared. But all I felt was alive. For the first time in my entire life. It was like I'd been underwater for years and finally broken through the surface. When the firm panicked, when the partners scrambled like rats, I realized something else. If I could take down a company this big, what else could I do? What about people? What about family? I wasn't Rachel Moore, second best daughter anymore. I was Rachel Moore, survivor. And soon, I'd be something even worse. Something unstoppable. It started with a rumor. Small. Innocent. Sharp enough to wound but soft enough to hide who threw the stone. Did you hear? Rachel Moore, you know, the twin. I heard she blackmailed her way into that promotion. I never said a word. Didn't deny it. Didn't confirm it. Just smiled tightly in the break room, stirring sugar into coffee I didn't even want, pretending not to hear. But inside? Inside, I was grinning like a wolf. Because when people fear you even just a little, you finally stop being invisible. By October, I'd paid off my student debt. Bought a car. Moved into a nicer place, still cheap, still tiny, but it had clean walls and windows that didn't rattle when the buses passed. On the outside, I was the picture of quiet success. On the inside, the thing growing inside me was louder than ever. The old Rachel, the one who cried herself to sleep hugging a hand-me-down teddy bear, she was dead. Buried somewhere deep where the new Rachel couldn't hear her screams anymore. And then came the message that ripped it all open. It was a Tuesday night. The office was empty. I was staring at spreadsheets so long that the numbers were blurring. My phone buzzed. Mom, family dinner Saturday. Your sister's engagement announcement. You'll be there. No please. No asking if I was free. Just you'll be there. As if I was still a kid in the backseat, going wherever they pointed. I almost ignored it. Almost blocked the number. Almost chose peace. But that was before I remembered the yacht photos. The years of being an afterthought. The bleeding knees, the pitiful paper napkins, the quiet, dismissive glances. I looked around the office at my prison, my victory, and realized something awful and thrilling. I could ruin them. Not with fists. Not with screaming. But with something far, far worse. By the time Saturday rolled around, I'd made my decision. I showed up to dinner wearing my second-best suit, nothing flashy, but crisp enough that my parents would notice and immediately feel uncomfortable. They had booked a fancy private room at a restaurant downtown. The kind with white tablecloths and servers who made you feel like you didn't belong unless your shoes cost more than your rent. Perfect. When I walked in, Hannah was already there, glowing like a Christmas tree, flashing her engagement ring to anyone who would look. My parents hovered near her, beaming like trained seals. And me? I was the stray dog they barely tolerated. I hugged Hannah. Congratulated her. Kissed my mother's cheek. Shook my father's hand. Smiled so wide my jaw hurt. And when they handed me a cheap, second-hand glass of wine, because why waste the good stuff on Rachel? I toasted. To family, I said. They clinked glasses, all fake smiles and tight nerves. And then I struck. I pulled out the envelope from my purse. Placed it gently in the center of the table. What's that? Hannah asked, tilting her head. A gift, I said sweetly. My mother smiled nervously. Oh, Rachel, you didn't need to. It's not for you, I cut in smoothly. The room shifted. You could feel it, that sudden tilt in gravity when something very bad is about to happen. I tapped the envelope. In there, I said, is everything you need to know about where Dad's secret retirement fund really came from. Silence. Forks frozen halfway to mouths. Eyes wide. Breaths held. Dad turned pale. Mom's hand twitched. Hannah looked confused. What are you talking about? She asked, half laughing. I smiled wider. Ask him, I said, nodding toward my father. Because thanks to that little flash drive I borrowed from the office months ago, thanks to a little careful digging, I had found out something interesting. My father had been laundering money. Tiny amounts, tucked away, buried inside fake accounts set up by his firm. It wasn't enough to land him in jail yet, but enough to ruin his reputation. Enough to tank Hannah's engagement to Mr. Perfect if it came out. Enough to destroy the narrative of the perfect more family forever. Dad opened the envelope with shaking fingers. The color drained from his face as he read. Mom leaned over his shoulder, lips pressed into a bloodless line. Hannah stared between them, realization dawning. You? She whispered. You knew? Dad didn't answer. Couldn't. The lies had been so neatly wrapped around them for so long that they didn't even recognize when they'd started unraveling. I stood up, brushing imaginary lint off my jacket. Congratulations again, Hannah, I said lightly. I hope your fiancé likes family scandals. I turned and walked out before anyone could speak. Before anyone could stop me. Outside, the cold night air hit me like a slap. I didn't cry. I didn't laugh. I just stood there, letting the city noise wash over me, feeling something dangerous and feral coil tighter inside my chest. For the first time in my life, I wasn't surviving. I was winning. And I wasn't going to stop. By Monday, the entire town knew. Not just about the scandal. Not just about Dad's fake retirement fund. No, someone had leaked the documents. Not me. I wasn't stupid enough to leave fingerprints. But someone, somewhere, had seen an opportunity and lit the match. And just like that, my parents went from pillars of the community to pariahs. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. Hannah's engagement fell apart in spectacular fashion. Her fiancé's parents called off the wedding. Mr. Perfect dropped her faster than a live grenade. Social media exploded. Hashtag more scandal. Hashtag fake family. Hashtag goodbye golden girl. Hannah's tear-streaked apology videos made it worse. At work, I pretended I didn't know a thing. Pretended I was just Rachel Moore, reliable, boring, average. But every time someone whispered behind my back, every time I caught someone glancing at me differently, I knew. They suspected. They knew. And part of me? I loved it. Then the letter came, folded into a cheap envelope, no return address. Inside, one line, written in jagged black marker. We know what you did. No threats. No signature. Just a promise, hanging in the air like smoke. At first, I thought it was a prank. Someone trolling. But then the little things started happening. First, my car tires slashed. All four. In the middle of a rainstorm. Then my apartment broken into, nothing stolen except a handful of old family photos I kept shoved in a drawer. And the final blow. The flash drive. Gone. The one I'd hidden in a locked desk drawer under my bed. Taken. Panic isn't loud. It's quiet. It creeps into your bloodstream, slow and icy, whispering you screwed up, you screwed up, you screwed up. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. Every face on the street looked suspicious. Every shadow too long. By Friday, the paranoia had cracked something in me. I called Hannah. I hadn't spoken to her since the engagement dinner from hell. She answered on the second ring, voice flat, dead. What do you want? She said. I need to talk, I said. Face to face. Silence. Then, fine. Tomorrow. Noon. The park. The next day, I showed up early. Sat on the freezing bench, heart pounding. When Hannah appeared, I almost didn't recognize her. Gone was the shiny, effortless girl everyone loved. She looked small, fragile, broken in a way that wasn't fixable. Good, the voice inside me snarled. She deserves it. But another voice, fainter, whispered. Did she? She didn't sit down. Just stood there, arms crossed, staring at me like she was calculating if I was even human anymore. You ruined everything, she said quietly. You ruined me first, I shot back. She laughed. Not the bright, musical laugh from our childhood. This was a dry, ugly sound. Like scraping metal. Rachel, you always thought it was about you, she said. You think Mom and Dad hated you? I froze. Hannah leaned closer. They didn't hate you, she said. They were afraid of you. What are you talking about? I choked out. You were always off, Hannah said. Even when we were kids. You didn't cry when the neighbor's dog died. You didn't flinch when I broke my arm and screamed bloody murder. You just stood there. Watching. Like you were studying us. My blood turned to ice. You think you're the victim, Hannah said. You're not. You're the monster. For a moment, the world tilted. Because deep down, hadn't I always felt it? That I was different? Not just overlooked. Not just unloved. Wrong. You're lying, I whispered. Am I? Hannah said, her voice soft, almost pitying. She pulled a photograph out of her coat pocket. Held it up for me to see. It was old. Yellowed around the edges. A picture of two little girls. One grinning wide, missing teeth, Hannah. The other, me standing stiffly, eyes dark, smile, off. Wrong. I didn't even remember that day. But looking at it, something sick and familiar twisted in my gut. Hannah tucked the photo back into her pocket. This isn't about love, she said. It never was. We were trying to contain you. She turned and walked away, her boots crunching in the frost. Leaving me sitting there, numb. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I realized something terrifying. Maybe I hadn't become a monster. Maybe I'd always been one. The letter wasn't a threat. It was a warning. I sat on that cold bench for a long time after Hannah left. Long enough for the sun to dip below the city skyline. Long enough for the streetlights to buzz to life. Long enough for the truth to crawl out from wherever I'd buried it inside myself. They weren't scared of me because I failed them. They were scared because somewhere deep down, they saw exactly what I was and they didn't know how to fix it. The next morning, the second letter arrived. No envelope this time. Just a crumpled note shoved under my apartment door. We gave you a chance. Now we'll take everything back. No signature. No return address. Just dread. By noon, my boss called me into his office. The look on his face said everything before he even opened his mouth. Rachel, he said, rubbing the bridge of his nose. We have an issue. Apparently, someone had tipped off the firm's competitors about our irregularities anonymously, of course, along with juicy, fabricated stories about my involvement. In a single stroke, my career was dead. Over. Gone. Effective immediately, he said, sliding the termination letter across the desk like it was a death sentence. I didn't argue. Didn't cry. Didn't even blink. I just stood up, nodded once, and walked out. Because the real battle wasn't in that office. It was out there waiting for me. They thought they could erase me. Erase the monster they created. They didn't understand. I wasn't scared anymore. They were. That night, I called a number I swore I'd never dial. A guy named Ellis, someone from the audit firm's underbelly. He fixed problems for rich clients. Made embarrassing documents disappear. Silenced rumors. Created new identities if necessary. He picked up on the second ring. "I need a favor," I said. Pause. Then a dry chuckle. "Rachel Moore, huh? Figured you'd call eventually." We met in a deserted parking garage downtown. The kind of place where deals happen at gunpoint, where screams get swallowed by concrete and nobody cares. He was exactly like I remembered, thin, sharp-eyed, dangerous in a way you couldn't explain. "You want out?" he asked, lighting a cigarette with one hand and tossing me a flash drive with the other. "Not exactly," I said, curling my fingers around it. "I want leverage." The drive was full of everything he'd gathered about my parents over the years. Turns out, Dad's secret fund wasn't even the worst thing he'd done. Bribes. Fraud. A fake charity that siphoned donations into a shell company. And Mom? She wasn't innocent either. There were bank statements linking her to shady land deals, payments under fake names, shell accounts in the Cayman Islands. I had enough evidence to not just ruin them, but to bury them. Financially. Socially. Legally. They wouldn't survive it. Neither would Hannah. Neither would anyone still clinging to the sinking ship of the Moore family legacy. I spent all night building the packages. Anonymous email drops. Mysterious mailers to reporters. Social media posts scheduled to deploy at just the right time. I wasn't just setting fires anymore. I was burning the whole goddamn forest down. But as I sat there, staring at the screen, my finger hovering over the send button, a thought slid into my mind like a knife. If I do this, there's no going back. No second chances. No secret apologies. No family. Not even the illusion of one. Just ashes. And for a moment, one breathless, agonizing moment, I hesitated. Because the truth is, monsters don't win. Monsters don't get happy endings. Monsters get hunted down, locked up, forgotten. Even if you burn the people who wronged you to the ground, you're still standing alone in the smoke. I thought about Grandma. The only person who ever looked at me like I mattered. She wouldn't have wanted this. She would have told me I was better than this. That I didn't have to become what they said I was. I closed my eyes. Breathed out slowly. And then, I clicked send. Because better wasn't enough. Because surviving wasn't enough. Because in the end, I wasn't trying to prove them wrong anymore. I was trying to prove myself right. The aftermath. The news broke within 24 hours. Moore family charity exposed as a fraud. Criminal investigations launched. Assets frozen. Properties seized. My parents' faces splashed across the evening news. Hannah's influencer career obliterated overnight. I watched it all unfold from the safety of a cheap motel room 3 cities away, eating cold Chinese takeout straight from the carton. When the reporters camped outside their house, Mom cried for the cameras. Dad clutched his chest dramatically during a live interview. Hannah posted a 20-minute apology video that nobody believed. And me? I disappeared. New name. New ID. New life. Ellis took care of the details. The price was steep, but worth it. I vanished like a ghost. No one came looking. No one cared enough to. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if they ever realized it was me. If they ever lay awake replaying the little signs they missed. The cold smiles. The quiet obedience. The way I stopped crying a long, long time ago. I wonder if they regret it. I hope they do. But mostly? I don't care. Because the thing about monsters is, once you stop pretending you're anything else, you're finally free.